It's time for another
Mindset Cold Monday.
Oh, we're outside.
It is cold today. But we're going to do it inside, but there's too many people. Yeah. So we're like, nah, we'll go outside and we'll be cold just for you.
Now this episode's all about vampires.
Yes, vampires.
People that sat...
I
genuinely shot myself. I was like, take what you want, don't hit my face. Clearly after my blood, just don't hit my face.
Energy vampires, more to the point.
Yeah. So that you may or may not know someone that does this to you. So it's generally, they've got a lot going on in their life. Whatever it is, there's always a catastrophe, there's always a tragedy, there's always something that they're talking about that you do not get a word in edgeways.
Sometimes it's just boring ass stuff that they just want to talk. And people get sucked into this way of living. In fact, let's just start with an example. I've got a great example. Okay, so
Here we go.
A friend that I grew up with. Love him. You know, he's great. However, he was an energy vampire. So he used to phone me almost on a daily basis. But then it went down to weekly, and eventually filtered down because I just started to ignore his phone calls. But ultimately, he came on the phone and he talked about boring stuff like his work. And I won't mention what his work was, but it was a very boring job. And he used to talk about this stuff, and I was like, and I used to sit on the phone, and he would talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, and he'd be there for like at least 40 minutes, just talking about nonsense. And I come off the phone, every time I come off the phone, and I was drained of energy. I was just like, oh my God. And it was just so draining. And so that's one example of what I've experienced. So ultimately, I'm very aware of my energy levels, and I was like, I need to avoid these phone calls. And ultimately, it come at the price of our friendship. I mean, we're not falling out as such, but we just don't talk. Because of that, I just started ignoring his phone calls.
I had a similar situation where a person was going through a real hardship. Now, you gave it all the advice that you could give, all the tips, tricks and direction and support, but ultimately they weren't taking your advice for whatever reasons. They were still entwined in part of the problem. They would pick inappropriate times to spill the entire problem on the table, and you genuinely didn't know. You got to the point where when you saw them, you were scared to ask, how are you? Now you were doing it, you know how we use that as like small talk, how are you? You don't actually, you just want to hear the response, you want to hear the automatic response, yeah, good, how are you? And then you can break into small chat, do niceties and move on. You don't expect the whole life story all over again. The life story that you know is going to be like, oh my God, you're just... And you get caught in it. You get caught in it and you're there, and for me personally, I'd given all the advice I could give on the matter. I tried to give positive reinforcement, support, and I knew the person wasn't going to listen to anything I said. Therefore, my role in this person speaking to me was just to listen, as we've done in a previous video. But ultimately, it was the kind of stuff, as Stephen described, where it was just boring, it just sapped the life out of it. It was a whole bunch of energy just getting drained from me and nothing back.
So ultimately, what is happening here is energy transfer. Now, this is something that there's not many science books that talks about it. There's certainly nothing that you learn at school. But ultimately, it's a natural thing, and then you will experience it in your own life. It's when if somebody steps on stage. Okay, so if we've done some public speaking. When we step on stage and we're giving our message, we're ultimately absorbing energy from our audience. This is how the world works. So if I say something interesting, that ultimately, again, why gossip is so popular is because when you give a bit of gossip and you get energy from something, if somebody says, oh, really? Then you're absorbing their energy. That's why people like to gossip. But it's ultimately the same thing. When we step on stage and giving our message, we're absorbing energy from other people. So when we step off stage, we're like, that was fantastic.
Yeah.
And ultimately, we did it with a hangover. So we went on stage like, okay, yeah, let's get this done. But stepping off stage, we're like, that was really, really good.
Because there's only two of us, but there was hundreds of people, so there was hundreds. You know, the energy transfer.
We're absorbing just that tiny bit of energy. Now, ultimately, this is what you'll have in everyday life. You'll have people that talk to you, or talk at you rather than with you. You know, there's not a two-way street.
And in a very small scale, like Steve and I will have a bit of banter, right? Now, we'll say something. He might say something smart, and I'll be like, fuck you, but then we laugh and then we appreciate we've done it and we do a fist bump, and right there, that's kinetic energy, boom. And then you've had that, you've bottled that a moment. So I said something, he took the piss, We're like, oh, he accepted, he won a point, there was a fist bump, there's kinetic energy,
and it stops.
Yep, and then we move on. But regardless, all that connection, all that energy bounce back. It's like a game of tennis, right? And that's why it works. That's why we enjoy, as a social species, speaking to people that are interesting. Whether it's banter back and forth, or if it's just interesting gossip, you enjoy the to and fro. The problem is when it's very, very one-sided.
And that's the problem. So even in say a professional setting, if you're in a professional setting and you're chatting, now sometimes it could be like you're talking about an interesting conversation. So like sometimes Rab and I will listen to podcasts, or we'll read the similar books, and we'll talk about concepts, and we're like, oh my god, it's so fascinating. And then Rab will say a bit, and then I'll say a bit, and then we transfer energy to and fro. But ultimately, we both win because we finished the conversation. We're like, man, that was a great chat. We loved it. There's loads of energy flying. But it is only when it's one-sided, and everybody's got somebody in their life that is the talker.
The vampire.
The energy vampire that just talk and talk and talk, and they absorb all of your energy, and you'll know the people in your life because you will be drained, you'll be knackered just being in their company.
And they won't just do it to you. You see, they absorb your energy and they're like, oh, I feel better now, that was good. And sometimes at the end of the meeting they're like, thank you so much for that, I feel better. And you're like, oh really, because I feel fucking drained. And you know what they do? They go on to the next person, and the next person, and the next person. It's not necessarily their fault, it's just what they do.
Yeah, it's like a vampire. Once they taste the blood, once they've tasted that energy, they need it. They just need it again and again and again, and they will go from person to person because they need it. Now it's your job to look after yourself, and if you recognise this in anybody, in any of your friends or your family, then you have to cut them off. It's so important.
You've got to understand the kind of person you are. Now you're either the kind of person that will stand your ground and say, you're not letting me get your word in edgeways, so you can put them on the place. If you're not that person though, if you're not that forward, then you will have to cut them off because you've got no choice. Otherwise you're just going to be completely throwing away your energy every time you run into them.
And I'm going to be a little bit serious here. I know. Drastic times when Stevie gets serious.
Here we go.
I have seen relationships, husband and wife, that one party is the talker and the other person suffers from depression. Okay, now that is quite serious. Look at the people around you. Are you giving somebody all of your energy to a point where you are suffering from depression? It is so common. When you get the talker and they feel like they are that they're doing you a favour. Okay, oh, you've got depression, right? And they'll talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, and they'll give you all the solutions, and they'll tell you about their day, and they'll do this and you do this, and ultimately all they're doing is giving you this information that they end up absorbing your energy, and they might mean well for it. Okay, they might not mean to absorb your energy. Okay, I'm not saying anybody's being malicious by doing so, but they're doing it nonetheless, and you have to be so aware of it.
Because if you're sat there and somebody's talking at you, although you're not necessarily talking back, your energy is flowing into them. It's like a suction out, right? And then unless you've got something to give, maybe a question or maybe an interesting point in the opposite direction of the conversation, unless you've got something to give back verbally, you're just going to be just getting the life sapped out of you. Your blood's just draining from you over and over, and it'll make you miserable, absolutely miserable. We're all about health and happiness.
We are. So here comes our advice. We treat it like a serious, because this is a serious injury, right? So imagine you got a cut to your arm, you cut an artery.
Yeah. Now if you leave that artery pissing with blood, you will die. Job done. Night night, no biscuit.
Not even one.
Not even one, sir. Not even one. It's night night, no biscuit. You know, you have to, if that artery is pissing with blood, it will not. An artery will not stop bleeding on its own. You have to do something.
You have to stem the bleeding. You have to do something about it very, very quickly. You have to say, right, enough is enough. I need to stop this energy flowing out of me.
Step one, stop it.
Stop the bleeding. Stem the bleeding. Just like you've got a cut to the artery, you have to stop the bleeding. You have to put pressure on it, and a lot of it. Okay, so just take solid action and stop the energy flow.
Step two, in the short term, you're going to have to do a bit of self-care, Because if you've been spending a lot of time with someone or helping them through a situation, and they've been sucking all your energy out, you need to do something for you to recover some of that energy.
Yeah, you build it back up again. So as long as that energy is not flowing back out again, you have to then try to regenerate some of that energy. And it's having healthy relationships and healthy conversations, like the example we just gave before. If Rab and I are chatting, we'll talk about different subjects, ultimately we both win. Now, sometimes I might have a down day, and I might say to Rab, well, this is happening, and then Rab will listen to me and he'll give me some of his energy, and then vice versa. Sometimes Rab will have something to say and I'll give him my energy, but that is a relationship, okay? You have to think about your own relationships and say, right, okay, am I getting energy from anybody? And that is where you look, okay, as long as you don't become the energy vampire yourself.
So getting that energy recuperating is the equivalent of the bandage. So you've stopped the bleeding first of all, that's applying pressure. You're putting the bandage around, which is then getting good conversations with other people, get some energy back in. Your next job is preventing it happening again. Now that's your two options. Well, it's basically two options. If you're a strong-minded person that would either send an email or speak to a person or do it over the phone, or just be blunt, just say, look, this is very one-sided, I'm not enjoying these conversations, it's not all about you. I'm here for you, but it's not all about you. If you're strong, not strong, that's the wrong term. If you're the kind of person that can do that, great. If you're not the kind of person that do that, you're going to have to just avoid the better cut them out.
Yeah. And the example that I gave right at the start of this video, okay, I had a friend, a very, very close friend, I love him to bits, and I still love him to bits. I just don't speak to him on a regular basis. Our friendship just sort of dwindled out because of this energy transfer. Okay, I at that time of my life, it was many years ago, that time of my life, I wasn't as savvy as I am now. I was just very aware that I was being drained, therefore I had to cut that contact. Maybe if it was today, I would have to have a conversation with him, like, stop talking pish to me and let's have a real conversation. Think about your own situations, who's draining your energy, is anybody draining your energy, and if nobody's draining your energy, and if you feel totally bright as a button, then maybe you're the energy vampire.
That's right, you've got to make sure you're the one that's not draining everybody else's energy. And you'll know it. If you're ever at a meeting or a lunch or something with your friends, do you find yourself talking the most? Now, sometimes people find themselves talking the most because they think that, oh, I have quiet friends.
Yes.
But are the friends quiet because you're talking all the time, or are they really just quiet, right? And the test is just shut the fuck up for 10 minutes.
And actually, here's a real kind of tip. Be genuinely interested in other people. Mm-hmm. Okay? Because as much as people will show you the attention to listen to your stuff, they're doing it because you're talking to them. Okay, and they want to be polite. Ask other people what their day is like, what their life is like. Ask them interesting questions about their family or their job or their hobbies or whatever they're up to. Ask them how they are. And listen to the answers.
Don't just wait for your turn to speak. Avoid the vampires.
Yeah, mate, I'm just not too sure. Like my training's okay, but like I want to be stronger, right? So like when we're training together, like I feel like you can just do that a little bit more, and I'm always trying to keep within that like certain boundary. And sometimes I think, well, am I doing something? Like, what do you think? Am I doing something wrong? I mean, really, what I think is like I could be doing more. I should be lifting, like I should be mimicking you, but then I feel like, well, my body's not like yours, so I have to do my own training. I have to do what's good for my body. And I think, well, what does Rab eat? Does he eat sort of different to make him? Like, what do you eat? I mean, is it more like protein, or like I think I'm eating more protein? Oh, is it more carbs I need because my body likes carbs? But yeah, you don't eat carbs. How much carbs do you eat? I don't think it's that much, is it? But then I'm already quite lean, and like, how lean do I want to get? And like, well, what do you think? I mean, I think you're okay. I think you're like, your muscle shines through. So I feel great today. You don't have to be as lean. I don't know, it's just this whole... I don't like this.
That was fucking genius. It was brilliant. annoying yourself. I was trying to keep a straight face.
I sound like a whingy bitch.